going to shoot with risk-based internal audit plan. Okay, so this was the last part of our different operational management of internal audit things that we needed to see. So how to build a risk-based internal audit plan, knowing that this is a rather important part of the CIA Part 2. I'm going to show you a workflow which I purely created myself. In fact, I created it a long time ago in an internal audit manual, but I actually think it probably shows overall, and I think in a simpler way, a lot of what you're going to see in this whole section. In fact, pretty much the whole Part 2 I've broken down into different workflows. So we're going to start from the strategic internal audit plan and go towards an annual internal audit plan, going from a strategic risk assessment to the strategic internal audit plan, because we start here with a document called the Strategic Risk Assessment. You have created this as Chief Audit Executive for many different years. I went through this exercise with my manager and team spread out throughout the world. So I asked my manager in Chicago, in the US market, what are the important things, the important risks that should be included in the plan? And so they worked, she worked to be able to create a plan for the US. And then I went to my person in Singapore and I said, okay, in Asia Pacific, can you tell me about the risks in Asia Pacific and try to build a risk assessment that can be used for an internal audit plan over Asia Pacific. Same thing for my Europe, Middle East, Africa, based in Ireland. They built a plan which could find the different risks in the organization for those different parts. And then I consolidated it into a strategic risk assessment, which also allowed me to kind of play around with the resources from different regions. This strategic risk assessment helped me check and prioritize processes by year. So we were planning over 50 audits. Frankly, I forgot per year, around 45 audits per year, not far from about 140 to 150 audits on a 3-year strategic plan, which is honestly a lot of audits to plan, 150 audits to plan. And of course, the audit universe, all possible different audits, was hundreds more. We broke down all of the risks. We tried to understand all of the different risks and say, okay, this risk we want to cover this year. This risk we want to cover that year. And some risks you have to cover every single year. And so we check and prioritize the processes by different year. Now, an important part is that you also get the feedback that you have received previously, from your audit engagements, as well as the feedback on the plan that you have. So for my current organization, okay, I arrive, beginning 1st of January. I create a risk assessment. I talk to by now I've talked to well over 100 people, and I try to get a lot of people's different feedback. I come up with a list of risks, based on the information I got from many different sources in the organization. I put that feedback to different members of management. I try to get their feedback. So feedback from the CFO, first feedback from the chief information officer, feedback finally all the way to the CEO, and finally the approval and feedback from the audit committee board. So you would integrate feedback into your planning loop. And finally, from your strategic risk assessment, from prioritizing risks by year, by integrating feedback into the planning, you come up with a strategic internal audit plan. Now, this is kind of my process. So from the strategic risk assessment to the strategic internal audit plan, and kind of the next process that I'm just going to tease you a bit with is the annual internal audit plan, which we're now going to see in more detail about how it is built. From the strategic internal audit plan to engagement planning, we have our oversight bodies, our annual internal audit plan, and our engagement planning. And now I'm going to place the strategic internal audit plan here. It's not the strategic risk assessment. It's the plan based over, say, 3 years. We have 3 different years of things. And you're going to see how the process is slightly different. So we're first going to check and prioritize processes by year. Now, we already have our 3-year plan, right? Usually in a 3-year plan, what I've always seen is that you still have, a spread throughout the year. We're going to do this in first year, this in second year, this in third. But what happens if the risks have changed? In fact, it's absolutely necessary that from this strategic internal audit plan, you reperform on an annual basis a risk assessment to check and prioritize the processes by year. We get our management feedback. They might say, the situation has changed, or we face new risks. I mean, in a lot of businesses, 3 years is a lot of time. And so we integrate that feedback into the planning. And finally, we end up with an annual internal audit plan. You might think that there are a few steps that are missing, but you're going to see that those things are afterwards. And I'm placing now, check the adequacy of resources. Wait, that sounds strange. Shouldn't you check the adequacy of resources before making your plan? Well, actually, no. And I'd really like you to understand this super crucial, important point. You first look at the risks you want to cover, your feedback, your requests from the audit committee, the things that you absolutely need to cover over 3 years, and the things you absolutely need to cover annually. The audit committee approves the plan. The plan has resource requirements linked to it. And so now, if you have put, say, on your plan that you need, say, an environmental specialist because you are doing carbon reporting, well, I am not a specialist in carbon reporting, even though I'm starting to get more knowledgeable. But the annual internal audit plan is first approved by the audit committee, and then you figure out how to get the number of people you need, the skills that you need to actually be able to fill that in. And in an ideal situation, of course, your audit committee has said, we want this on these resources, and then you go back and you say, okay, then, dear administrative reporting line, since the audit committee has said that I need these resources, then I will need to check my resources and make sure that they are complete. And otherwise, in theory, the administrative reporting line should aid you in being able to hire sufficient resources. So you check the adequacy of your resources, you review your staffing and capabilities. That can be IT capabilities as well, such as, you need to audit. You need to audit certain things that require huge amounts of data analysis, where you're going to need the IT software to do that. And so, I'm teasing the next part, which is engagement planning, which we're not going to see in this section, but we're going to see soon enough.